Who doesn't love Fany? I know I do. One of the longest serving coffees we have at Has Been, and still one of the best.
My name is Steve Layton, and I travel the world finding amazing and delicious coffee for you to drink at home. Some make coffee difficult to understand and complicated, but here it's my job to make it easy and fun and tell you what's in my mug.
Finca Fany has been producing coffee in El Salvador since 1870 and has belonged to the same family from generation to generation. Situated on the Santa Ana volcano, the farm provides work for 24 families in the community and is in a biological corridor that stretches from Mexico all the way down to Panama. The estate is full of 100% Bourbon coffees. Nearly 70% of El Salvador's total coffee production is Bourbon, which is one of the most desired coffee varietals in the cup. It's harder to grow, it's more susceptible to disease, and provides lower yields than lots of other varietals. But for me and for many other coffee professionals, it produces some of the finest coffee in the world. I love El Salvador for dedicating themselves to producing this awesome varietal and awesome coffees. And I think they produce some of the best espresso coffees for me. This one is particularly fantastic. I worked with it initially back in 2004 when Has Been was still roasting in the back of my garage at home. And this was one of the first relationships, along with Fazenda Cachoeira, that I really was able to build and able to buy. Since then, we've gone from strength to strength. I've been lucky enough to visit Rafael and Carmen many times, but I was able to meet them in a visit back in 2008. Excuse me, 2012, 2013 and 14, and last year and the year before that. I go all the time. And it's also always one of my highlights of my trip that I get to spend time with some of my favourite people on one of my favourite farms. And both of them have become very, very special friends, people who are very close and dear to me. You'll get to see them a little later in the video. So this is a section where we focus on the tasting notes and try and think a little bit about how I came up with them. So the first things that jump to mind with this coffee, that it's very clean and it's sweet. And the sweetness reminds me of like a slight syrup. When you get peaches in a tin and you get the syrupy kind of stickiness from it. But then mixed in with that is like a honeycomb. So like think about the honeycomb in a crunchy bar. That kind of sweet kind of hit, and I'm saying sweet a lot. These are all descriptors and I'm trying to drive home the sweetness to it. But it's not just sweetness, there is some interesting acidity in there. So again, when this is reminiscent of, it's not a taste of, it's something that reminds me of, is apricot. So think about a fresh apricot, the acidity of that, the juiciness of that. And then mix that with a little bit of like a lime zesty kind of zing to it. Now, it's not like eating a piece of lime zest. None of these descriptors are like eating the actual thing that it's a reminder of. One of my favourite descriptors I ever gave was the carpet of a toilet of a working men's club. Now, I've never tasted the carpet of a toilet in a working men's club, but it's something that reminded me. We didn't buy that coffee, by the way. But descriptors are something that reminds you of and are not necessarily descriptive of. Hello and welcome to this week's geography lesson. I am Geography Steve, and today we're going to be looking at El Salvador, which can be found here, or officially the Republic of El Salvador. It is the smallest and most densely populated country in Central America. El Salvador's capital and largest city is San Salvador, and as of 2015 the country had a population of approximately 6.38 million, consisting largely of mestizos of European and indigenous American descent. A succession of authoritarian rulers, persistent socioeconomic equality and civil unrest culminated in the devastating Salvadorian Civil War that went on between 1979 and 1992, which was fought between the military-led government with a coalition of left-wing guerrilla groups. The conflict ended with a negotiated settlement that established a multi-party constitutional republic, which remains in place to this day. El Salvador's economy was historically dominated by agriculture, beginning with the indigo plant, the most important crop during the colonial periods, and followed thereafter by coffee, which by the early 20th century accounted for 90% of export earnings. El Salvador has since reduced its dependence on coffee and has embarked on diversifying the economy by opening up trade and financial links and expanding the manufacturing sector. The colon, the official currency of El Salvador, since 1892 was replaced by the US dollar in 2001. So this is a section that was called Roasting with Roland, but after one episode of Roasting with Roland, by popular demand, I've got rid of him and I've introduced Edward. Ed, say hello to the people on In My Mug.
Hello, lovely people.
You may not have seen Ed before because Ed's been with us for just a few months now. He's still officially the new boy. But you've lots of experience of roasting. You've been roasting for a little while, haven't you?
Yep, 2 years.
Yeah. So at Origin, who are lovely people down in Cornwall, who we're good friends with. Lovely Cornwall. It's a long way away.
It's a long way.
It's a long way from anywhere.
Yeah.
Been roasting for 2 years. If you were roasting a Bourbon, like how would you approach that differently? Is there anything you would look out for when you were just like, because you know this is the first time you've roasted Le Fany with it being in, because you haven't had it in previous years. What would you look at when you first started?
I'd probably go quite to a fast to a medium roast. Bourbon's quite chocolatey, quite milk chocolatey, so probably go into crack, good speed, slow it down, end of first, bring out that really high sweetness you get from Bourbons. Wouldn't take it too far into second. I don't really want to lose. There's a little bit of like fruity sweetness in there, so yeah.
I think that's the thing, is you want to kind of keep those qualities that are in the coffee, but you also want to bring out what's hidden in there. And I think that quick roast is definitely the way I would always approach a Bourbon. Yeah. And you don't want to take it too dark because you just don't want any of those roasting notes kicking through. You just want the sweetness and the smoothness, and then that interest in acidity that can come through with that too. Yeah. I think it's really, really good. So how has it been coming from a roastery where you were roasting on one machine before, a very big machine, weren't you? But to roasting on 4 different ones. Has that been challenging as you've had to kind of adapt to, I'll be roasting on a 2 kilo now and roasting on a 60 kilo?
Yeah, definitely. The previous roasters I've had have been 30 kilo to 12. Diedrich and Loring come in here. Yeah, so going from a 2 kilo to a 60, it's very different. Different styles of roasting, different philosophies. So yeah, thrown away a little bit of what I knew and learnt new things, which has been great. A little bit less technology than I've had in the past, which is good because it gets you more back into the senses of smell, hearing, just looking at the beans and having a feel for them. Yeah, it's good. We've done a lot of tasting here since I've been here, so that helps as well.
It's one thing we definitely do a lot of here, is there's a lot of cooking, a lot of tasting going on all the time. Well, if you've got any complaints about this week's roast, please direct them to this gentleman, as he's going to be roasting the In My Mug for this week. So it's all Ed's fault. If you like it, you can send me an email thanking me for employing Ed and let him roast your coffee. So no pressure, mate.
That sounds fair. Yeah,
cool. Rolling on. Caramel, green apple, honeycomb, apricot. So this week for the tasting, we're going to do something a little bit different. I know we've done a lot of cupping, but we're going to cup as drinking and come up with the descriptors there. And so you can cup at home. Let's go look at the cupping brew guide. Hello everybody, and welcome to the 5th in the series of the Has Been Brewing Guide. My name is Steve Layton, and today we're going to be taking a look at the process of cupping. I know you're shouting at your computer, but that's not a brewing method. And you're right, but it's a great way to taste coffee and can also be a new level of interest for your hobby of coffee. First of all, you're going to need some things. You're going to need some cupping bowls. Now you can use mugs as long as they're the same size and have a wide mouth, but dedicated bowls are best. A cupping spoon. A large spoon will do, but again, it's always best to have the right kit. Some coffee, preferably some that you can compare. Freshly roasted, of course. A grinder, a kettle, some scales, a timer, and 2 spoons and another mug. Step 1, boil the kettle. Step 2, weigh out 12 grams of coffee beans that you want to cup and put them into the cupping bowl. Mark the bowl starting with 1 going upwards so you can know which coffee that you're going to be cupping. It's best to cup them blind. Then grind the coffee to a very coarse consistency. Think grit. Step 3, get that snozzer in the bowl. This is the highlight and should be thoroughly enjoyed. Step 4. Fill the bowl starting at 1 and don't dally. For the first time ever, I'm not going to recommend using scales when using water, but that's why it's important they're all the same size. Go back and top up at the end if you need to make sure they're filled to the rim. Step 5. Wait 4 minutes. While you wait, have another sniff of those wet grounds. It's a great chance to see what that coffee will be delivering to those taste buds. Step 6. On 4 minutes, start at bowl 1, get the back of the spoon and break the crust that's formed on the top. That gust of aromatics that are released when you break the crust is amazing and not to be missed. As soon as the spoon goes in, stir 3 times. No more, no less. If you stir twice or 4 times, the cupping police will be round to your house and be very, very unhappy. Between each cup, use a bowl of water to wash off the spoon. Step 7. Go back to 1 and scoop off the ground in a crab pincer movement. Again, cleaning the spoon after each bowl is really important. Think hygiene. Step 8. Clear away all the tools you've been using and replace the bowl of clean water with another one, because it's going to be dirty by now. Step 9.
So when you're ready to taste, place them on the spoon, making sure you aerate the liquid as you take it in. Something like...
Step 10. Think about what flavours you taste. No flavour is too ridiculous. If you perceive it, then it's there. Write these down as you taste the coffee. Look for highlights like sweetness, acidity, body, and how it feels in the mouth. Flavours and how they hold together is what cupping is all about. You can use a cupping sheet, and I would recommend that you do that, but don't get too hung up on it. The most important part is what you taste.
Step 11.
Keep going back to the cups and keep going until it's lukewarm. The coffee will change over time, and it's really important that you assess it at the very, very hottest and the very, very coolest. If a coffee doesn't hold together, it should be punished. But if it gets better, that should also be reflected. If you follow these simple steps, you can begin to assess coffee and score it, and this will help your palate grow and understand the differences between coffees. Thank you for watching this guide, and I do hope that you've enjoyed it. I also hope that you'll take a look at some of the other brew guides we've done. My name is Steve Layton, and remember, life is too short for bad coffee.
So time to cup, and one of my favourite coffees and favourite ways to enjoy it. So as we talked about when we focused on the tasting notes, this is a super sweetness to it. Think light syrup, like apricots mixed in like sugary syrup with a sweet honeycomb to it. But on the finish, delicious, like zingy, zesty, like lime zest that is just absolutely delicious. It's a fantastic coffee to cup, a fantastic coffee to brew. Now for something a little exciting, in my mug 327, we were lucky enough to get Carmen and Raphael interviewed on there, and I'd love to show that to you now.
Yes. Noruega, it's the name came after because Raphael's grandparents met in San Francisco and they got married there. He came from Norway. He's Norwegian. His last name is Hoff. So he married Raphael's grandmother, and they came here to live in Apaneca. And Raphael's grandmother had this property here, this Finca, and she named it after him because when she married his grandfather.
I love that story.
That's Noruega's name came from.
So I'm going to show you some photos now on the screen of the actual, it's like a big plastic tent, and then
oh, that's right.
There's a photo on the screen now of the actual beds in there, and you'll see the naturals drying, and we'll find a Siberia in there that's drying so they can see next year's one.
Okay.
But so then it goes in the bed. Now, how long does it take to dry in there? I guess it changes again with how warm it is.
Sometimes we need 20 to 28 days. It depends from the weather.
That's really interesting. So it has an initial sun
Here
drying.
we are grinding coffee in 1,500 meters over the seas.
Which is really, really high for a mill, isn't it? I mean, this is super. In most mills, you tend to find like 1,000 meters.
Yes,
below.
definitely.
Yeah.
I love Carmen, I love Raphael. They are two of the most loveliest people you can ever wish to meet, and two very special friends. I'm pleased their coffee is so good, but as I've always said, good people tend to grow good coffee. And that's because
Life is too short for bad friends and bad coffee. Loads of outtakes for this week's one. I was holding that one in. Oh, this is not good. Come on, Steve. Fany time.